Well, hello there and welcome back to the very latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, I've called this one Unlocking the Secrets of an Ecstatic Daily Life. Do you want to live an amazing, purposeful, wonderful, happy life? If so, you've come to the right place. We're going to talk to you about this brilliant subject to make sure that your life, your love life, your relationships, everything in it is done in the highest possible vibration and level. So to help me, I've got the wonderful Chloe D'Souza. She is a love, sexuality, and relationship coach. She has over 20 years of experience in intimate and therapeutic space holding for people one-to-one and in groups. Her background as a dance movement psychotherapist and ecstatic dance teacher influences her tantric and neuroscientific approach to her coaching practice. And she helps her clients fully embody their desires in the realm of love, sex, and relationships. Chloe, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Yes, mildly ecstatic over here.
Good. That's how we want to be, isn't it?
It is.
Now, this podcast today is all about how to live the most ecstatic life, because ultimately the key to an ecstatic daily life is to find joy in the present moment and to cultivate practices that support your overall well-being. And you are the expert in this. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell everybody a bit more about yourself and how you got into this wonderful topic and wonderful subject?
Oh, well, of course there's heartbreak involved, but I'll save that story for another time.
Isn't there always?
Isn't there always? This is why we're so good at our jobs. No, really,
Yeah.
well, I started out, my BA is in social anthropology. So I was studying systems all over the world. And it really led me into healing systems and what's effective and what's not effective. And I found dance floors. And dance floors for me, and this was a really key pivotal moment, they held all my emotional and physical experience all in one go. And I started to explore myself.
Mm.
And I started to realize that I didn't really need to be scared of my emotions anymore. And I brought them into physical expression. And life really took off at that point, which is this key to ecstatic living, really.
Amazing.
Because, we're very educated that actually we can be fearful around our emotions. On some level, we think pain will destroy us, or we think fear will destroy us. And having worked in adult mental health, you do have to be careful with yourself. But actually, most of the time, our hearts, because I believe in people, our hearts have a huge capacity for feeling. And when we really trust them and start to let that through into our bodies, those feelings tend to move through quite quickly. And then they don't hang around and get in the way.
But it's hard to do that, though, isn't it? You have to make yourself in a vulnerable situation.
It's not too hard I'll bring in here at this point this term radical self-responsibility. When you're really in relationship with yourself, it's not too hard to do it, I don't find. Sometimes you have to slow down a little bit inside of yourself, and sometimes you have to give yourself time to catch up later. But actually, most of the time, I'm having quite a laugh with myself in whatever situation I'm in.
Me too. Exactly. That's how it is. I think it's seizing the joy in every situation, isn't it? And seizing the fun and not being scared of anything. I think it's really hard to have no fear in life, but I think just to let yourself go and be present and just to do it. And you talk about dance, and I'd like to know a bit more about that, because dance is a great thing. For me, it's singing. That's how I get myself all chilled out and in the zone. But dancing, I've never been very good at dancing, and I don't enjoy it particularly. I've done dance lessons in my time when I was single to meet women, when I was in relationships just to have a bit of fun and to learn something else. So tell me more about this. How does it really help you?
So the type of dance that I teach is called the 5 rhythms, and there's 5 rhythms.
That's a good coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny how I thought of that. Started by a New Yorker called Gabrielle Roth. And really, it's a free-form dance. So you have these 5 rhythms: flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness. And as you let your body move, and hopefully you've got a good DJ like myself, that will play music that encourages you to move within those rhythms. You can explore yourself in flowing. You can explore yourself in staccato. Staccato is more assertive. It's more about the out breath. Flowing is more receptive. It's more continuous movement. Chaos is beautiful because you just completely let go. I imagine what most people, when you dance in your kitchen, when no one's looking.
I do that, yes.
Okay. Yes, you see, there's so many kitchen dancers out there. I know you're there. I see you. And lyrical, you start to hit a place where you've emptied out a lot of your movement, if you like. You've cleared the cache of emotions that were waiting to be expressed, and you hit a very I don't like this phrase, but a very high vibe place. You know, you find patterns. You know, you're more empty. And the fifth rhythm of stillness, obviously, is a bit like the post-orgasmic bliss. It's just empty movement where you've really hit a place where nothing needs to happen and anything could happen.
Wow. I thought we should have a video for this to explain exactly how you do this and what happens. I'm just picturing. So give me just pick your favorite one of those. How would that rhythm go? You probably can't clap because it would be picked up on the microphone. But what sort of rhythm is that?
Staccato would be 4/4.
Okay.
Yeah. And we could play a game with the listeners and with yourself. So most people
no.
Here she goes.
Come on then. I want to play a game. Right.
So most people have a home rhythm, which is the one you're most comfortable in. And given that we're talking about dating here and relationship, if you get two very different rhythms, home rhythm people in a relationship, you'll notice that they'll have a lot to teach each other. So, for example, I'm quite into staccato. I approached you. We do a show together. I have fun. I say what I think. You tell me back. You're pretty staccato, which is why we've got on so well.
Yeah.
But if you have flowing people, you know, they would prepare the ground very slowly. They'd take their times. They would receive themselves. You'll notice in conversation they might talk slower. They'll take longer to get to the point. Beautiful people to be around, but they set the ground, you know, quite thoroughly first. Chaotic people will have lost their keys. They'll be a bit late. They'll turn up. They're a lot of fun, but they're unpredictable. And there's more about attachment in there that I would work with clients. Lyrical people are very airy. You know, they like to have fun, but sometimes it's like, you know, can you actually get to the ground? So if you have trouble organizing yourself, you're probably not a home rhythm staccato folk.
Wow. I'm learning so much here. It's just
What do you think you are, James?
Staccato, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not chaotic. But having said that, it's like anything, like attachment styles, like love languages. It's always going to be changing to some degree.
That's right.
I don't think it's ever going to be fixed. Am I right in the same thing? Because different moods are going to affect you. You're going to be more in flow and more chilled out in different times, and more chaotic if your mind is that way. Is that how it works?
Absolutely. And, you know, in terms of one's sexuality, you'll see that there. You'll see it in the love languages. But we're a mix of all of them, which is why we dance all five. And hopefully, if you dance long enough or you exist in life long enough, you learn, like in partnership. Yeah. If your partner's love language is one thing and yours is another, then you start to get motivated to learn the other love language, don't you?
Yes.
The same way flowing was very uncomfortable for me, but I've spent years in it because actually it's just important. I need it as a life skill.
Yeah. And how important is breath work when you're doing this?
Breath is key. And the reason why most people hold their breath in any given situation is because they don't want to feel what the situation's bringing up for them. Mm-hmm. So the more you breathe, the more you feel. But the more you feel, the more alive you are. And that's where the ecstasy is.
Yeah, that's why it came to mind there. I think the breath is really, really important. You mentioned it also about breathing in certain dances and rhythms as well.
Yeah,
I think it has to be. People are too scared and they live in that tension, don't they, all the time?
Yeah.
So you can't be ecstatic and have an amazing life if you are tense and you're always living worried about what's going to happen. And I say it's looking for the red flags in everything rather than looking for the green flags.
Oh, say a bit more about that.
Well, when it comes to dating, for example, people will always look for reasons why they shouldn't date somebody. He's doing this, she's got that, and it's all very tense and very, I'm looking for reasons it's not going to work out. What I teach people as a coach, I say, look for the reasons why it might just work out. What is there that's working for you? What do you need to do? Be relaxed, be in the flow, wherever it might be. Go with this. If someone disappoints you, of course, but they've had their chance by then. But don't make the judgments on them before this has even happened.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love what you've just said. Lots of my clients that work with me, you know, do I trust him? Do I trust her? Do I trust them? And actually, ultimately, I try and get them and coach them into things like self-parenting, which is probably where the trust was initially eroded. But also, do you trust yourself, and teaching them to start to really trust themselves. Because, for example, when I trust myself, I'm not so scared of your red flag or your green flag. It simply is there. And also, when I trust myself, I can make really good decisions on whether I want to play or not. So I would be more likely to be looking at the green flags because I'm feeling more confident and relaxed in any situation, because I'm not scared of what comes up. It's just show me who you are.
Exactly. Then you can look for the good in people, which is important. In fact, I've got a really wonderful client I've known for years, and she's a good regular listener to my podcast. And yesterday we had a session and we talked about trust, and how she said that one of her biggest assets is that she's very, very trusting, and she's also very trustworthy as well. But someone in the past really broke her heart and she feels she can't trust them anymore.
Yeah.
How do you learn to trust people if you have been hurt really badly and let down?
Great. Brilliant question. And in fact, I have a client who I was working with this week, and this comes up a lot. This is where my approach is really trauma informed, and this is where, when you start to drop into embodiment is starting to realize that the nervous system is in your body, and you want to be integrating and feeling through the things that might exist in your nervous system that get in the way. So, for example, your client who's had heartbreak in the past, and this exists in all sorts of relationships, doesn't it? Sadly.
Yeah.
You want to be starting to integrate what that experience was for you, look at how your trust was lost, and start to build a relationship with yourself, having integrated the experience. And then what you notice when you've digested the emotions attached to that experience, that you can start to build another relationship with what people mean.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's like you might have a cache or a lagging over trust in your system. And I don't normally use computer language, but once you've cleared it, you are fresh to start with people all over again.
Do you think you can trust the same person twice?
I would trust myself around that person and not put my trust in them until, at all times. And then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You've got to learn to trust yourself.
If they turn up as a person in the here and now that's very different from the person they were when they broke my heart, then I might start to build trust with them.
Yeah, but if they're repeating the same mistakes over and over, and there's patterns and they haven't really changed, and they're still lying and still doing other things in that situation, keep them into touch. That was my advice there.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And I think a lot of our work here, it's like coming home to oneself. It's like I have very, very clear boundaries, but I don't need to necessarily assert them very fiercely. I can just drop it there because I mean it. And levels of self-love in your clients is really important to cultivate, because then it's very easy to walk away from a liar.
Yes, it is. Because if you have to know your own value first and have your own self-love and know your worth, then you won't tolerate bad behavior. And my belief is, until someone lets you down, then give them that trust, give them that support. And then, because nobody's perfect, we all do make mistakes in life, and we all mess up from time to time, even me. Not that I'm not trustworthy, I just mean generally in life along the way. I mean, it's hard to be perfect all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually, God, I've got so much to say about this, because, and particularly on places like Instagram, there's a sort of consumerism to relationships, as though, oh, when I find my perfect person, as though they're never going to fuck up or let you down. And they will, but actually love is a different thing than that, isn't it? And these so-called mistakes can turn into brilliant opportunities for deeper intimacy and vulnerability.
They really can. And I tell people that as well. Even in dating history, you might have had some bad experiences, but there's still good times along the way. That's why you stayed there. And I don't believe there's mistakes. I think it's just experiences that we have that we grow from, which is what you just said, really, isn't it? So that confirms it perfectly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about embodiment now, because we sort of touched upon this a little bit already. But can you tell everyone exactly what embodiment is and how it affects you?
Okay, so embodiment is the ability to not be in our heads all the time and be in our bodies, and it's a hard world for that, because lots of our lifestyles don't give rise to time being spent in the body. But when you start to realize, when you're in your body, there's feelings in your body, there's sensations, your nervous system is in your body. But when you start to really look to fully catch up with yourself, fully know what you're feeling in any given situation, there's quite a lot to digest. So, for example, a client might come to you and say, I'm ready to meet my dream partner. And so I would be curious, and a believer in them, and I'd be curious as to sort of like, oh, okay, so what would that look like? What would that feel like? And if they walked into the room now, what would you feel in your body?
Yeah.
And often what will come up, there's a cortical, that's the front bit of your brain where all the thinky goes on. There's the cortical yes to the person, and in the body there's probably a whole host of feelings, like your beautiful woman that your client this week. Probably there'll be a rush of fear in your body, in your nervous system, because you're scared of getting hurt. So I would be teaching my clients to allow that fear to rise up. Let's talk about the gift of that fear. How is it trying to protect you? It's trying to stop you getting hurt. But you want to meet a dream person, but you're backing off because you don't want to be hurt. So we integrate the fear and we say, thank you, fear, for arriving. What's your job? Perhaps we give it another job. Perhaps it just needs to be felt for a bit before your client can actually move towards their dream partner. But once you've integrated and embodied that part that keeps rising up every time your dream person walks in the room, you'll find that it's much easier to walk over to the dream person and start the conversation up, because you haven't actually, your nervous system and you haven't run in the opposite direction. So it's really about aligning your desires, because you can say you want something, but in your body and in your nervous system, the past keeps kicking up proof of actually why you should never have a dream partner, because you got hurt last time. Okay. So it's deep work. It's beautiful work. I do it very playfully and with a lot of love, because it's just this human thing that we're all doing down here.
It is. I think it's just self-preservation, isn't it? We are protecting ourselves, like you said, which can turn into self-sabotage, where you do start doing things wrong on purpose because you don't really believe deep down that you're going to have this. I've got a lot of clients in that way at the moment who don't really believe that they're going to meet somebody, and they feel like they're failures, they're destined. So they come to me as a last resort, and I empower them and I show them that there is hope. You're just doing things all the wrong way. And that's the sad reality of dating, isn't it? People do it wrong. Because there is no guidebook that teaches you, because we're all humans and everyone's different. It comes into us. But I think if you want to have a truly ecstatic life, you have to be free and you have to just balance everything out in the right way. So what else can you be doing, do you think? What advice do you give people how to have the most ecstatic life? What sort of things should they bring into their life to make that happen?
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Because there's levels of honesty, really, and there's getting to know yourself. Yeah. So what is it that makes you happy? You know, there's doing the things that make you happy, but there's also digesting the things that get in the way of making you happy. A lot of my work's quite deep. We're talking, you know, when I talked about neuroscience, I'm talking about neural pathways in the brain. So myself, having had like a traumatic experience that taught me a lot about PTSD, there's neural pathways where I can choose to think about that event again and again and again. But once I've done enough work around that event, I can choose not to think about that event anymore. And I am free to live my ecstatic life. And not only that, I've got a depth to me that I never had before, which I love. So it's really about choosing to do the things you love and not limiting yourself by running away from the places that scare you. I mean, I'd like to bring in sexuality at this point, to be fair, because also, you know, having a really good relationship with yourself is a key to having a relationship with anybody else. Mm-hmm. So in terms of an ecstatic life, embracing your sexuality is such a key for a beautiful ecstatic life, whether that's on your own or with other people. Because, you know, there's that sense of contentment, there's all those hormones that go on, there's the release of endorphins, there's all the pleasure hormones. And so having a practice, whatever it is, whether that's running or whether that's self-pleasure or whether that's massage or whether that's dog walking, something key that resources you for when the times get a bit sticky, that's still there in your system, that you go to your feel-good place as well as the difficult places.
As a way for you to unwind.
Yeah, as a way for you to unwind and a way to balance your system so that you're not always in one place or the other, but you can titrate between the two.
Do you think many people do have issues with their sexuality? Because this isn't my speciality. People come to me because I know what they want generally, but this is your speciality. It's why I'm asking you the question. Do you think people are confused by that more and more than ever before?
I don't know how confused they were whether it's more than ever before. I think the lid's being lifted on sexuality quite a bit, and it's becoming something more 3D than the sort of 2D version that perhaps we've been seeing in movies. And I think people want more for themselves. I think people have deeper respect for their bodies, and they want to respect other people's bodies deeply. and letting in the intimacy and vulnerability of sexuality. So it's not this thing that's meant to look like this, but rather, how am I with this human being? So yeah, lots of people are really scared of the vulnerability, and lots of people are deeply thirsty to be that intimate with somebody.
Yeah. So what do you do if you're nervous about exploring that and you're not sure what to do? So you can do it on your own if you want to go and find somebody and you're nervous about this, how someone's going to react. Maybe you haven't got the confidence, or you think your body's not right to go and do that, and you're nervous and embarrassed by these things. These are things I see people that hold them back when it comes to dating and having sex, things like that. They don't want to put themselves in that situation because they think, well, I don't really like what I look like, so I don't want to go and do this. So how do you get over that?
Well, you can work with me.
Good answer.
So no, I think it's, we live in a really harsh world in terms of self-image and body image and the selfie culture. Sexuality, for me, by my own definition, it exists inside every single person. So every adult on this planet has a healthy sexuality inside of them. And what's happened, it gets laid with different experiences on top of that, because everybody's got different reasons why that became complicated. And you start to peel back those layers. And once you start to really ignite sexuality inside yourself, regardless of who you're with or what the stimulation is, that it's just a living force inside of you, it becomes something that it doesn't matter what it looks like anymore. It doesn't matter what people think you look like whilst you're, in fact, I'm writing an article about it at the moment, how sort of damaging this, what do I look like when, as opposed to what do I feel like when I am with you? What do I feel like? When you walk into a room, and I guess you dating folk really know that in terms of the events you hold, and you're immediately drawn to one person and not another. And for me, that's not to do with what they look like, although it might be partially. It's to do with what's going on inside that person. It's like when we arrived on the screen today, immediately there was like, we can talk really easily. That was established in seconds.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
it really was. It really was. So getting people to trust that level of information they have by being in touch with their bodies is really key, and loving what experience they're having for themselves.
Yeah, I think just being as free as you can to go and do this, and to realize that life is short and you've got to do what you want to do, and don't let someone else's hang-ups or someone else's issues affect you. But something else you just mentioned there, sort of what I was getting at anyway, we are in the Instagram generation now, when lots of my clients, younger clients in particular, are going onto Instagram, looking at all the filtered pictures of people, and even the guys are all jacked up in the gym, tops off, and they can't compete with that. And they think, I'm going on the dating apps, how do I compete with that? And people don't feel good enough. But that is not the average, is it? It's the Love Island syndrome, isn't it? People always ask me about. Everyone on Love Island's always gorgeous and tanned. They don't have tans every day of their real life. They just put in their, they've done it, they do it before. So people feel that they aren't good enough quite a lot, which stops you having an ecstatic life.
Yes, it really does. It really does. And when we work with our clients, I'm sure this is a common experience. A lot of the women that I work with, it's not the tanned chest that they're after. The most common thing that I hear spoken is, I really would like to find a man who has emotional literacy.
Yes.
I don't know what emotional literacy would look like on Instagram. It can come in any shape or form. But you start to ask a person, how do you feel about this? Like, what makes you tick? Like when I'm with someone who starts, if you start listening to somebody, they immediately start lighting up. Listening is one of the key things that, if you want to turn someone on, just listen to them and listen properly. Listen on all levels and watch what happens. It's beautiful and I love it.
My wife told me that. That's why one of the reasons she liked me to start with all these years ago, because I was a good listener, listen to her. And now she says I don't listen to her at all, which isn't true.
It's overclaimed.
But it's not true. I do listen, but you get so many distractions from children, things get in the way. I do my best to try and do that. And if I thought it was an issue, I wouldn't even mention it. I think it's just something I'm working on.
I know you're fooling around, but that brings us onto the great topic of relationships. So often when I'm working with a relationship and people, context is really important. The context that of kids at home, busy lives, you have to tabulate your relationship slightly differently. You don't love each other any less. It's just that you've got two other people in the room most of the time asking for breakfast.
It does. I'm responsible for 4 people, including myself, in life to do that. And
Yeah.
And so is she responsible for three. For four, really. I'm a third child, she says. But that's what happens. But really, it's knowing this and knowing that that's your life is going to change. And if you meet someone, your life changes, and it changes in completely different ways we're not expecting. And I think knowing what your purpose is and knowing what you're supposed to be doing in life is a great way of living an ecstatic life as well. I know that my purpose is to help people have more confidence and find love. It's to be a good dad, be a good husband, be a good friend, be a good son if possible. All these things come along. But knowing your purpose is difficult. People are very lost, more so than ever at the moment, I think.
And why do you think that is?
Pandemic, partly. I think people are used to their routines. And it's been an amazing thing for many people. I think 80% of people that I ask in my sessions, how did you find the whole pandemic? They loved it. And it was great. They've rebooted themselves. They know what they want. Gives them a real chance to find love, which is a great thing because now they want me more than ever, which is great. But on the other hand, people who are lost, they're working from home. They're not seeing people in the same way. They can't communicate in the same way. They don't know if they want to do the same job they were doing before. And people don't know. And I think people are always wondering what they should be doing, what their life purpose is. But I think that's part of the fun. Just doing something about it and testing yourself and challenging yourself is how you discover your purpose. If you stay in the same routine and don't change anything, you're never going to know. What do you think?
I love what you just said. And actually, I was with a client last week, and I started to explain how I thought Lost was really underrated. Lost is lost if you really welcome in Lost. If I'm really walking my talk, and I have been lost, of course I have. I'm a human being. It's a landscape of the unknown. I don't know what to do, but in there is some gold, as there is in most opportunities, to sort of really start to revel in, or even kink up the lostness into sort of like the anticipation of what might come next if I really explore Lost. If I really explore Lost to the point where I start to dream in like stuff that I want to do with my life that I really was never going to let in if I hadn't stood about with Lost for a while. You know, whether that's travel. And I think we see that after the pandemic, people are scared to go into new situations or with new people, but we're very, very thirsty for it. So encouraging our clients, particularly in the dating realm, to expose themselves to new scenarios, and different people are going to pop up, aren't they?
They are. This is what I tell them. Don't just stick to the dating apps and hide behind your phone. Go out to real life situations as well. Go to events, go to talks, go to the gym, do something about it, because that's going to really help you along the way. And I think if you are lost, then that's great. It gives you a new chance of a new adventure to do anything that you want to do. It gives you the freedom and the flexibility to date anyone, do anything you want to do, live the life that you truly deserve. And that's what makes you happy, rather than just being, it's a positive thing.
Lost is a door to a new experience, isn't it, really? But if you deny Lost, then you'll probably stay doing the same things, like you just said.
Which is a waste of life. And you can be lost in a relationship, someone you're not happy with, someone you're dating, somebody you know you should be out and away, but it's easier to stay with someone than to feel I don't know what to do and how to start again. And that's when they come to me and say, James, what do I do? I need to get rid of this person. They're toxic for me. And I said, well, set them free, set yourself free. You might be a bit confused. You might wander around what to do, but that's part of the fun. And I think putting the fun back into life and dating is what I do. And that's an important part of this, isn't it?
Fun, like you talked earlier, right at the beginning of this podcast, about your value systems and knowing your value systems, and fun's at the top for me. If it's fun, I'm there.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it really is. That's how I do. That's why I love my job so much. It's really fun. And I love people. People are fun.
They are. And we get to talk to new people all the time, which is great. Yeah. I think getting them to be their best selves and to bring out the best version of them is part of what we do as well. Because people don't always come across that way, whether it's on Zoom or in real life or on dates. They are portraying a character to some degree, I think. Or they feel like they're on a job interview, which isn't the right way either. But if you're free and you've got that self-confidence and the self-belief and you don't really care about the outcome, only just want to have a good time and have a fun experience, then there's no such thing as bad dates, because every time you go on there, if it goes completely wrong, if it's not the way you want it to go, just tell people how funny it was and pick out the weird things that happened. I think some of the best dates are the worst ones, aren't they?
Yeah, I'll often say it's a great story. You've come away with a great story. But this ability to dare, coming back to the looking good thing, this ability to dare be yourself, because I will be the person in the room that might ask the awkward question, but it's an entirely interesting moment's just about to happen if I do that, or just really ask someone maybe people wouldn't ask on the first date, really truly be interested with them, and instead of just stick by the social rules, really ask, what makes you tick,
That's important. I think you should find out what they're passionate about in life. It doesn't.
Mm.
I don't think it's important to know what 10 jobs they've had in their life or where they've lived, all these different things. That can come later. You don't really care. If someone asks you how your day was, that's all very nice. It's a small talk. Where did you work? It's irrelevant. Where you are now at this point is the only important thing, and where you're going to. And can you go there together? That's what a date is in the first, second date. And after that, you discover more about yourself, you can open up and you can do these things. But people waste a lot of time eliminating people on weird filters like height or age or things that aren't particularly important. If they met them in real life, well, you know what, they're really fit. And that's enough, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah.
It is. I think something else to talk about in the subject of living an ecstatic life is gratitude, because you have to realize what you have going for you in order to appreciate it. What are your thoughts on gratitude, and any advice on that?
Somebody said to me recently that gratitude was sort of like one of the highest vibrational things there was, and it got me thinking about it a lot, and it got me thinking about what I place my attention on. And so I do think in terms of gratitude, once you start to receive yourself and build a relationship with yourself, you get this happy feeling, whether it be like, oh, I'm super loyal actually. And we can overlook the things about ourselves that are so obvious because we're so good at them that we don't give ourselves that acknowledgement, and equally with the people we are with, I might argue about tea towels and who's walked the dog last, but actually am I, in terms of gratitude, it's like, oh, actually this person is really crap at walking the dog, but they're really good at whatever XYZ is. So it's a sort of circular movement in a way, isn't it?
It is.
But if you can get into that way of thinking, I think you're starting to choose happiness in a way, rather than we can win by punishing someone with our bad view on them, or we can actually make ourselves happy by just choosing, to be grateful what they are good at.
It goes back to what I was saying about them looking for green flags rather than red flags, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And getting the balance right, if you're a very, very, very trusting person, you might also have to tabulate a bit and sort of make sure you're not ignoring red flags because you just want to see green. But it's like, oh, who am I actually with? And they get to be with a trusting person. That's amazing for them.
Yeah. Of course, red flags definitely do exist. Just to point that one out, they do exist. But I think green flags are much more common than red flags are. And if someone's treating you badly, that's a red flag. Get out of there. But really, I think that's obvious to spot then, isn't it? But if you're trying to look for these things and look for these things in life, it's like you just said, look for the good in people. Be grateful for who they are, what they bring to you, and how you complement each other, whether it's a friend or family member or someone that you're dating or married to. It's important because we all bring different things to the table. You mentioned just now about the tea towels and the dog walking. It could be we're good at some things and not on others. So know what you're good at, enjoy things that you're good at, and don't really focus on things you don't want to do, because life is way too short for that. I think overall.
Yeah, and I think in contemporary culture, we're very scared of difference, and which ties in with gratitude. So, there's some great writings around this. I don't know if any of your listeners have read Harville Hendrix and people like that, Getting the Love That You Want. But you'll often find in partnership when you're getting together with someone that, what they're good at, what you can be grateful for is what you're not good at, and vice versa. So you start to get this lovely sort of, exchange going on. But I think initially we can think, oh, a red flag is, well, they're a talker and I'm a listener. But somehow if you want to engage with them, you could impart some gratitude over their self-expression, and they start to impart gratitude for listening, and then you share the skill, and unpick sort of like, oh, I'm curious, you haven't asked me about myself for 30 minutes, how does that feel? And they'll suddenly go, oh yeah, I'm behaving exactly like my mother. And, and then they might start to make an effort with you. So the red flag is no longer a red flag because you've got someone willing to change, and you meet in the middle and become listeners and talkers.
I think it's letting them know that you appreciate them as well, and that you value them, and then that you value yourself and appreciate yourself for who you are. And that's the best way to be happy and to live an ecstatic life. One more question for you.
Yes.
How do you live your ecstatic life? What any sort of daily rituals that you have? I always ask my clients this, but not normally around the same way. But I've crowbarred it in there just because it still fits. It fits so well.
It at the end,
It fits so well, doesn't it? So it's great.
Yeah.
It's like this is everything before has been a build up to this. So you tell me the answer.
Yeah. Well, so what are my key ingredients to ecstatic living? I have a practice each day. So I will wake up and just spend some time with myself every single morning. And I've got kids, so I'm not saying that's easy.
It's not, is it?
It's not easy. I dance and run really regularly. That's my go-to place to spend time with myself and in nature. Mm-hmm. I have a really good pleasure practice. So in terms of just me and my body existing in ecstasy on a regular basis, like we're there with each other, it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I have a really good set of friends. They're gold dust, people who are willing to sit there with you through thick and thin. There's music. I'm a complete music fiend. Like I can't do a day without music. That takes me to ecstasy very, very quickly.
What do you listen to?
A wide range of music. I mean, I come from the generation that got into free parties. So some of that might be techno. Some of it might be much more just, folk songs from, deep America. I can go anywhere. It has to match how I'm feeling, James. And when I get congruence between what I'm feeling and what I'm listening to, that's where my ecstasy is. So when I'm not resisting my sadness, and I can put on a song and then I can cry, that's very ecstatic for me. It's like I'm not fighting what I'm feeling. And for me, ecstasy is in sadness, and as well as joy and laughter. It's not in one place for me. Same with anger, actually with pain also. It's like, oh my God, this really hurts. I must be alive.
Yeah, that's how you appreciate things again, isn't it? Because you're in touch with
the
all your emotions.
appreciation of being alive. It's like my chest actually so hurts from this pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great way to end this, isn't it? Pain. Let's end in pain. Why not? Pain's a great thing.
The joy of pain.
The joy of pain. I just think what we should remember is that we have only got one life. You may as well live it in the most ecstatic way you possibly can and live for it and just enjoy every second you've got, because you never know what's coming next. And it's an adventure. And don't be worried about people judging you. Live for yourself. That's what I would say to that. Yeah. And that's what we're clearly doing, isn't it? So that's the best way.
And if you've only got one life, you start to make very different decisions because you're so grateful for this one life you've been given. So I love what you said there.
Yeah, it's really, really important.
Yeah.
Chloe, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you're really, really busy, so we'll finish there. How does someone find out more about you?
They can go to my website. That's the quickest go-to route. So that's feralgrace.net.
What does feral grace mean? I want to know what that means.
Well, for me, there is so much ecstasy. My life is so fueled by my relationship to the wild. And there's grace because actually, wild isn't all ferocious and powerful and sort of, there's a grace to it because there's a tenderness and there's a vulnerability. So it became a nickname for my best friend for me. Hence the business name, because I'm all of those things. And life,
I love the contrast.
Life is all of those things. Life is all of those things. So let's include it all.
I understand now. It makes total sense. So it's brilliant. What an awesome name. Thank you so much. I know we'll speak again. Have a great rest of the day.
Indeed. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.